have you. Welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me and for extending the invitation to me to sit on your program. I have watched your program on a few occasions, and I have been in Georgia also 2 years ago to serve as the keynote speaker for the Independence Day program. So I interacted a lot with some folks there. So I'm pleased to be on this program today. But before we move forward, in your introduction, let me make a correction there. I am not the author of the PIT report.
Okay.
The PIT was formed by the President of the Republic of Liberia. It is comprised of organizations. Full organization, the Liberia Anti-Corruption Commission, which is the LACC, which was the chairman. Okay. And then the Liberia National Police, which was the co-chairman. The National Security Agency was a member, and the Financial Intelligence Unit, which I head, was a member, and the secretariat of the commission by virtue of the work of the institution. So FIU was the secretariat. So as the head of the institution, I formed part of that. But I took orders from the chairman, LACC, and the president. In fact, the steering committee was headed by the Minister of Justice, who was our ultimate boss. Who was our boss, and the president being our ultimate boss. So I was not the author. The president was hands-on on that report. The Minister of Justice was hands-on that report. And key players in the government of Liberia was hands-on that report. As the secretariat, our modus operandi when we do our press conference was the chairman will do the introduction, and the secretariat will read the report. And I, as the head of the organization, I could not have sent somebody else to read the report but myself. Since the chairman, who is LACC, the designated person, was also present. So I'm not the author of the report.
Brilliant correction, and I appreciate that. I was not sure of that. Again, thank you for that clarification. But you are here, and we want to get some understanding from you on this whole budget thing in Liberia, which is a very, very governing tool in our country. But before we do, not many know a little about you, including myself. I'm still trying to know you. Why are you willing to share in terms of introduction with our audience?
Okay, so I don't eat much of your. I hope I don't eat much of your time, but I'll try to keep it,
make it as brief as possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I am married. Let me talk about family first. Mm-hmm. I'm married to Mrs. Joato Coffee, and together we have 4 children and 1 grandchild. Okay. Alexandria, Alexis, Alex, Alan, and Eva. Okay. I have a bachelor's degree in accounting from the University of Liberia, and I have a double master's, that is MBA degree in accounting and information system management from the University of St. Thomas in Minnesota. And then I have a few other certifications. So in my professional life, I started off from college. I started off as an auditor and a financial management consultant with PricewaterhouseCoopers. And I was stationed in Accra, Ghana. And we specialized in different fields. So I specialized or focused on international development projects funded by the European Union, the United Nations, the USAID, the World Bank, and I also delved into that's on the consulting side of things. On the other side of things, I dealt with nonprofit organizations, if you may, you could call it NGOs, non-governmental organizations, and also gold mining. So I spent 7 years doing that. I was based in Ghana, but I did a lot in Ghana. I did a lot of work, in the 90s when the great Jerry Rawlings, who is one of my idols in terms of leadership. You don't like him, but he transformed Ghana. And a lot of the projects, the developmental projects that turned Ghana around today, I played some role in those projects while serving as a consultant there. I also went back to Liberia and did some work with the Central Bank of Liberia, at that time a national bank. And I went to Nigeria, specifically Kaduna and Kano states, to do some work in their agricultural development project. Of course, these are international organization funded project. And I also did some work in Sierra Leone with the banking sector reform and other stuff. And also the process that led to the discovery of money laundering issues and the closure of the Bank for Credit and Commerce International, BCCI. I did some of that work. So I worked around West Africa. Then after PricewaterhouseCoopers, I joined a gold mining exploration company for 3 years as the financial controller there. Working in West Africa as a Liberian and heading teams, especially economic development teams, whether it's a non-asset recovery trust, whether it's the validation of World Bank loans and balances, whether it's the setting of the non-asset performing trust, whether it's the gold mining, flotation of the Ashanti gold fields on a London exchange. As a Liberian, you are seen in a very high esteem, because sometimes the people in the West Africa region, sometimes we are not very present as Liberian. That's, so when you're found in those terrain, you are really cherished. So after that, spending about almost 10 years in West Africa, I moved to the United States of America. And for a combined 6 years, specifically, I came to Minnesota, which I'm still residing. I work with ING Reliance, it's a financial services institution, as an information system auditor. And then I left there, I joined Ecolab. It's a specialty chemical manufacturing company. I serve as a public financial reporting system analyst. And then I was promoted to a senior financial analyst. Whilst I was doing that, two of my colleagues who I hold a debt of gratitude to, Mr. Toyo Harris and Mr. Jerome Dualu Beslo, sent me an ad, say, my friend, there's something called GMAT thing. They're looking for international recruiter financial controller. I said, my friend, you're moving behind me, man. I ain't here for the Liberia. Not because we did some things within the politics of Liberia in 2004 and 5. So I really want a job to go back to Liberia. I think I'm on a trajectory here in the United States. So like in my Liberian too, you're more Liberia business behind me. But they insisted, especially Dwalu, that guy is a beast. He insisted, he helped me in the process with the negotiation and everything. And I got recruited by the USAID. So I became international recruiter, financial controller, among other, financial management people from different countries. And I went back to Liberia. I worked with state-owned enterprises, especially the Rabat International Airport, the Freeport of Monroe, the National Port Authority, the Liberia Petroleum Refining Company, and the Federal, the Forestry Development Authority. I was mainly based at the RIA, but then I had to lend my expertise to the other institutions, especially when the other guys were not present. Right. So I did that. I also did some work with the budget, the Open Budget Initiative with Ministry of Finance, and as well as I did some editing of the Public Financial Management Act as well as its regulation. And then I helped with finalizing the strategy for what we call today the internal audit agency. I did that. So that was, after that, I did that for 4 years after the GMAP, and then I started my own, I started working as Alan Bernard International. I opened a consulting business, and I did some project, of course, international funded project with World Bank, with UNDP, whether it's the Ministry of Commerce, whether it's the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, or different things that were funded by the IMF, the African Development Bank, the UNDP, and the World Bank. I did some projects there. I did that for another 4 years, and then I was appointed. I applied for a position that was in a newspaper, the head of the Financial Intelligence Unit, and I went through a vetting process. We went through an interview process, and then names were recommended to the president, Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, and she preferred me, and she appointed me to head the financial intelligence. So at that point, I was responsible for developing, administering, monitoring the anti-money laundering program in Liberia. I did that for 5 years, and then I moved back to the USA, where my family continued to stay in Minnesota last year. And I am currently doing business as Allen Bernard International, a registered and certified company in the state of Minnesota, an emerging consulting firm offering business advisory, technology, training, and what we call anti-money laundering, but here they call it anti-money laundering / Bank Secrecy Act, AML BSA services.
All right.
So far, we have, we'll wait. So far, we have completed 3 major projects, international financial crimes intelligence. For a large banking institution in the US, we've set up the AML BSA risk assessment methodology for a big transfer agent company. And currently, we're providing to one of the largest banks in Liberia, in the United States, we're helping them to transition from the London Interbank Reference Rating to a reference rating stipulated by a U.S. regulator, including the Federal Reserve Bank.
Mr. Coffee?
I hope that was short.
Mr. Coffee, are you going to pay me for this long resume that you're trying to share with us?
I told you it's going to be long, but I try to make it short, so I have made it short.
All right, let me fit
I try to squeeze everything in there.
What an impressive resume. Congratulations for your contribution not only to Liberia, but also to humanity. We appreciate what you do, but we call you here to handle business for us. So let's get to that business. And by the way, send me a copy of that resume so that I can read it every day to motivate myself. So to our topic, right, of budget. And William, are you ready for us to roll?
Oh, yeah, let's get this thing on a roll.
All right, let's get started. And Mr. Coffee, let's start with basics. We want to understand this budget thing we hear about all the time. There's always noise about budget, and some already don't understand it. So we want to really rely on your expertise to provide some, expert understanding on this. So my first question here is, what is actually a budget?
So budget is a financial tool used by anybody or institution or government. So budget is as simple as it may get. It's a projection. It's a forecast of your revenues and your expenses. All right. Again, like for example, as a person, me personally, I use a budget. I have a family budget. We put all our expenses there. We put them in different categories, whether it be a food, groceries, and toiletries, whether it be a mortgage or rent, or utilities and consumer loans. We put that, and then we look at how much is coming in and what is the difference. Then we look at savings and all that stuff. So budget is a forecast of basically how you will make money and how you will spend that money. So it can be applicable to corporate organizations. It can be applicable to churches, nonprofit organizations, and in this case, government, specifically with the Republic of Liberia national budget, which is a forecast of its revenue and expenditure.
And I know this question must see somehow, but I really want you to give me, from what you just explained, I understand the importance of it. But nationally speaking, why, if we didn't have a budget, how would things be? So my question is, what is the importance of the budget? What do we need it for?
The budget is very good, right? And I like to give practical examples and example relating to human understanding, right? So somebody is crying, oh, I can't make ends meet. I'm getting frustrated. I say, okay, hold on. Just a little talk. And today that person is doing very well. And there's a lot of examples. I say, what are you making? Okay, I'm making this. How are you spending it? I said, come here. I have a little tool here that I help with people in my profession. And on a personal side, I do this. So let's list your income. And then let's list your expenses. Now, you see that after that, the person decided to adapt that. And the person started doing well. And now the person understands what is coming in versus the expenses, including food. Well, you got to budget for your food. You got to budget for clothes. All these little things you do, you go to the restaurant to eat, they add on. Even the gas you buy to put in your car, people don't budget for it. The repair and maintenance of your car, they don't budget for it because you need that car to go to work. So imagine just an ordinary person, an individual having issues because they're not budgeting. So take that to government. If the government is not budgeting, there'll be confusion. You won't understand how much you're making and you won't understand how much you're spending. There'll be confusion all over the place. So budget is very important.
Very, very important. Before I bring in Willen, quite too often we hear about this whole budget shortfall, budget deficit. Before Willen come in, you want to share your understanding on those two, budget deficit, budget shortfall?
Yeah, yeah, budget deficit, budget shortfall. I would even include recast, budget recast. So budget, when you do a budget, and note now, I didn't say this, but I was an instructor at the University of Liberia for 12 years, from 2007 before I left. And in fact, I'm still hoping that they will do the online teaching thing. I'll still continue to teach. Okay. So I say that because sometimes I will get in a mood like I'm teaching. Yeah. All right. So budget deficit. So budget is based on revenue and expenses. And there's a difference between when you subtract the expenses from the revenue. So if the revenue is higher than the expenses, then you get what we call surplus. Okay. That is more money. Okay, corporate world, private organizations could call it net income, net revenue after taxes. They call it a different way.
So for me to understand, as a non-financial person, you're saying that the money that coming in your pocket,
yes,
when a more than what you will use for food and gas, then that's surplus.
Yeah, then that's surplus. The difference, that's surplus. Oh. So that means your revenue is it's higher than your expenses. For example, you get $1,000 coming in as revenue, and you spend only $800. Okay. The difference there is surplus. Okay. Now, if it's the other way around. And then it becomes deficit. That means you're making $800, but you're spending $1,000. That means you got a deficit
of $200.
So budget deficit is where your revenue has become lower. And then now, remember now there's a budget, which is the forecast or the projection, and there's the actual. Okay. That is what you actually got. Mm-hmm. So if your actual revenue is higher, is lower than if you spend more, then you are doing deficit. Then there's a deficit right there. Okay. Now, sometimes in budgeting, especially with government or even corporation, you can do what they call deficit budgeting. That is to say, you know very well that the revenue is lower, but certain things contingent upon these things happening, we will get this revenue. So, or we'll do this, we'll play different tactics to make sure that we even up. Right. So you know very well that your revenue is from the where it goes. So your expenses is higher than the revenue. So you do deficit financing, if you may, as simple as it can get. Okay. Now, shortfall is mostly on the revenue side. Okay. Now, you say you are going to collect you were going to make, or you're going to collect revenue, $1 million of revenue. But you didn't collect that for other reasons that may have happened. So that means your revenue is short. Now, mind you, that in government budgeting, government doesn't make profit. So government said they will collect 500 million. That means they have to spend 500 million. It's like non-profit, fund accounting.
Okay.
But if some other reason during the course of the time you make more, then you have that surplus fund accounting, you apply that to something else, maybe in the next year or some other project. All right. Mm-hmm. So you go back to the legislature. That's why we do a recast. Recast is for government, especially for government like Liberia, at the point of the year, maybe 6 months, mostly in January, after because the year starts in July. So 6 months after, we do a recast. So we look at what we call the AT10. AT10 is meaning, okay, we say we're going to spend this or we're going to make this revenue. What is the actual AT10? How does it turn out to be? So the AT10 now is what we actually got and what we actually spent. Now, if we notice something happen, that either we're spending more than we're collecting, which technically is a deficit, then we have to recast. We have to move money here and there. But guess what? The budget is a law, so you got to go back to the legislature for approval. Okay. So those are the basic terminology. I hope I explained that clearly.
Oh, yeah, you did that. And William.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Alex, thank you for those explanations. I mean, it sounds like we're all good, sophisticated, intelligent people, but everything that we have on our books and laws in Liberia, for some reason, when you get to Liberia, it looks so shiny on the books, but then when the implementation time comes, we run into a bunch of quagmire situations. So when we're looking at our budget for Liberia, I'm curious to know, what makes up some of the revenue items.
So okay, the budget, I will call it revenue item or expenditure item, the structure of the budget or the composition of the budget, if you may. So on the revenue side, in a very summary, because the budget is a big document because law. It has so many pages. But to summarize it clearly, specifically for government of Liberia, on the revenue side, we have taxes that we collect. All those taxes that are collected by LRA, the Liberia Revenue Authority. Right. And then we have non-tax revenue. All those other different fees that are collected, whether it's the court system, whether it's the MCC, whether it's the municipal that's collecting them, all the different things that are not related to tax, all the other revenue that are not related to taxes are part of that. Mm-hmm. And then according to the 2020 budget, not the recast, but according to the original 2020 budget forecast, the tax revenue makes up about 72%. 71 point something there, but about 72%. Okay. Whilst the non-tax revenue make up 17%, 17%. Then we also have what we call the external resources, that is grants and loans. Luckily for the 2019-20 budget, the government was very little prudent for other reasons, maybe because our ability to absorb or take different loans. So it was around 4%. And most of that was in grants. And then the government also have what we call, in the revenue side, it also have what we call the contingent revenue. And the word contingent then means if something happens, mm-hmm. right? And most of the time, this is sometimes is given by the international people, either the World Bank or the African Development Bank. We'll give you this money, provided you meet this trigger. Okay. maybe you pass this law, or you do this thing, or you they access to the free market, or different things that you can do. So based on that condition, we give you that money. So what government does is put it in contingent revenue, because it's something has to happen before that money comes through.
Okay.
All right.
Right.
So in 2019-20 budget, it was around 7%, which is like $40 million. Yeah.
Is the budget more right now, when we observe it, is it more of a has it been politicized more than anything else? And also we look at Liberia, and we see that for some reason our budget, over 90% of that money goes towards labor and resources, and very little goes towards the capital or infrastructure development or deployment. How does that work to be something like that? How does that work out?
Okay, so if you look at the expenditure side of the budget, the government Liberia budget, you will have the way we outline the revenue side of things. On a summary basis, again, you'll have what we call the recurring expenditure. All right, the everyday expenditure, the salaries, the grants to other institutions, what we call the goods and services, and the capital things like computers and things for institutions. Most of these things are absorbed by the 100 or so institutions of government. All right. Then we have what the budget has.
Over 100? Sorry, you said over 100?
I said 100 or so. I said 100 or so.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a lot for a small country. That's a lot for a small country.
Yeah, the last time I checked, it was like 70 something institution. But they might have added some or removed some. So I just say 100 and so plus or minus. That is not a definite figure. So the recurring expenditure comprises is 93% of our budget. At least I'm quoting from 2019-2020 budget, not the recast budget, the actual budget. So then what we call the PSIP, the public sector investment plan, that is the different programs that they want to build roads, or MCC wants to do some projects, or they want to build some real estates, or different projects. It's just 7%. So you can see the room for development project, that envelope is squeezed, because our budget is more concerning recurrent, and recurrent expenditure includes compensation, salaries and benefits and different things to employees of government, be it civil servant or other people who are appointed officials and other people. That is about 60% of our budget, especially. Look, again, I'm judging with the 2019-2020 budget. That is about 60.5% in compensation alone. Then grants make up about 12%. And goods and services now. Goods and services is what besides salaries and benefits, goods and services is what goes to keep these institutions alive. That is what? Fuel to run a generator, for example. Transportation, for those basic things, supplies, sheets, printer cartridges, those things that go to help the organization stay afloat and do its work. All right. So that is about what? 7%. And if you can imagine that the total budget, 7% of it goes to support organizations stay alive, there's a problem.
And Alex, before you come in, that's what I wanted to ask you, right? Because your professional life also has been in the field of development, working on projects, like you helped to work on some projects in Ghana during JJ Rowland time. You talk about and other projects you have worked on. And you understand development. Looking at the case of Liberia, where like about 70%, 7% or less is allotted for development projects. Do you sometimes sit back and watch other people that are saying, "Oh, we're going to do this, we're going to do that"? Do you sometimes laugh at them? Because if you look at 7% being allotted for projects, and you
Mm-hmm.
are a man that has understanding of these numbers, and these guys are making we'll build it, we'll build that, and you're like, where are you going to get the money from? Have you ever found yourself thinking that way? And if so, is that something you say that, well, I don't think we're going to develop this country with this kind of money? Small.
Okay, so the different ways government can take care of these, or the different ways that things can happen. Now, let me take you to the budgeting process and its execution.
Okay.
Maybe doing that, we will have some understanding of what you're going through.
Okay.
Now, we laid the budget structure out, and then now let's look at the process. The budget process is over the government budget process, even the private sector, wherever. It's a long, drawn out process. Yeah. It is not a, oh, let's do the budget and let's carry it. It's not an individual budget. Individual budget, in fact, I remember this morning I had to print out our budget, my household budget, to my wife and say, okay, this is it. In my home, we got to do transparency, right? I show her the budget and say, this is what we have to do, and this is what is going to change over the next week, and all that stuff. So it's the same process. It's a budget preparation process. For government, it takes a few months, okay? And where they issue budgets, cost circular, that is information online, so I wouldn't dwell into that. But on the summary basis, the Minister of Finance is in the driving seat. And these are guided by the Public Financial Management Act, and its regulation, the financial regulations, which are issued annually, and executive orders or other things. All right. And then also you look at the revenue laws and all that stuff. So these different things are looked at. But then there's a process outlined by the PFM regulation, the Public Financial Management Regulation, that the government has to follow. So the Ministry of Finance takes the driving seat, collate all the information from all the different, they have a format. Government has the Open Budget Initiative has a format, a well-defined format. I always say this, and I'll say that again. Liberia as a country, we have system, we have processes, we have laws. And even in everywhere, even in the United States or every advanced country, even in an advanced country, things change. So there's tweaking every now and then. So Liberia is not an excuse of tweaking every now and then. But laws can be tweaked based on circumstances. Policies and procedures can be tweaked. But Liberia has system. The budget system is there. The PFM law is a tool, it's a strong tool that we have as a country. Sometimes our problem is our approach to it and its implementation or its enforcement. That's what batters out. But in the work that I've done in Liberia, we have a lot of things on the books. There are a lot of good things on the book. So the budget process goes through. Eventually, all these different institutions are given a format. They put the numbers in. They're giving what we call a ceiling. This is a ceiling. You can, especially on salaries, you can employ more people. You can do this. Those things are capped. The Minister of Finance, because the president that's the job of the president, but the president delegates that position by law to the Minister of Finance. So the Minister of Finance, acting upon that law, request or issue the budget cost circular to the different institutions, stating the format, the whatever your plan, what did you do last year, and versus what are you going to do. You have to give an explanation for everything. All right? So all the different institutions of government prepare that based on the guidelines that are provided by the Minister of Finance as enshrined in the Public Financial Management Act and its regulation. All right? And the other financial tools that are available. So, for example, they will say your ceiling is this. And within that ceiling, this amount is for salaries. You can't go above that amount. That means you can employ more people, you can increase salaries, you can do whatever. It has to be within the confines of that. So all government institutions send a budget to the Ministry of Finance. Where applicable, the Ministry of Finance have budget hearing as well within the Ministry of Finance. If certain things are not looking good, certain things are good, they have the hearing, why you want this, why you don't want that, you keep. And then when the budget is collated, it's sent to the president, and the president now submits it to the legislature. So the executive has concluded the budget. And normally there's a date. By April 30th, thereabout, the budget should be submitted. Sometimes we meet that, sometimes we don't meet that, and then by law, the president can ask for extension. So
does the Ministry of Finance has that autonomy in terms of like what you said? So you have these institutions, right? Just for clarity. So those 77 institutions are some of the examples what will submit like a budget. Does the Ministry of Finance have autonomous decision to go against what the institutions want without consulting them?
To answer your question there, the Ministry of Finance understand the revenue is coming in, the envelope, the revenue envelope, what is available. It is based on that revenue, and then that revenue based on things that happened in the previous year and based on what we project as a ministry, because the revenue side is also always there with. The expenditure side is what goes to most of the institutions that are not revenue generating. So the revenue side goes to the LRA. So there's a whole lot of meetings, whole lot of sessions that are held with the revenue people, or what the SOEs are going to contribute. The state-owned enterprises, the LPRC, the NPA, what are they going to contribute? What are we going to get from external sources and stuff like that? Okay, what are the contingencies that are happening? So they will put that together. Based on that projected envelope, that's how they will break down the expenditure side of things. And then based on that, that's how they'll give you your ceiling. It is that ceiling that you have to operate within. Now, and then if they tell you, if they give you your letter and they say, well, the cap on your salaries or the ceiling for your salary is 200,000, and obviously if you submit a budget for 300,000, they're going to be pushed back to you. You're going to be queried. You're going to be called for what? And if you don't, no matter what justification you make, sometimes they may be allowed, but in order to do that, my brother, they have to then now take money from somewhere else. Maybe they now have to take money from some other organization. If you make a case and the Minister of Finance, the institution, the other people who are in the budget process, the Deputy Minister of Finance and the Assistant Minister of Finance, if they understand where you're coming from, then they say, okay, we can allow this to happen. But to allow that to happen, because the revenue, the envelope is just like this, we don't have excess, we have to now take that money from somewhere else. Okay? I remember when, for example, when Sebastian Moa was Deputy Minister for Revenue, that brother is a wizard. When I go to the guy, I say, my friend, you got to give me money. The guy said, well, Kofi, where I want to take this money from? Okay, let me see something. Then he does his IT stuff and move the money and say, you see, he shows me, you see, this, we have to move money from somewhere to give it to you. I know what you want to do is important, but we have to move money from somewhere. We got to disenfranchise another organization, so to speak, to give you that money because the revenue envelope is so small. There's nothing we can do about it. So now, when all the institutions, based on that, but that's why they have the hearings. Because you can make a justification for something to happen. And the Ministry of Finance can make that adjustment within the system. All right? So it goes to the legislature. The legislature now then the budget now becomes political. All right? So we submit a budget for say, in Liberia. In my own estimation, for what I know and for what I've seen on different papers, our actual revenue, all things remain constant because there are other things there are other exogenous and unforeseen circumstances that can impact the revenue envelope, such as Ebola, such as COVID that we have now, or other things. There's guinea worm that happened in Bond County that we were not expecting, or there's a huge flood that we didn't even have in the forecast if we really do forecasting of our weather in Liberia. But those things happen, or there's a fire that burn, but all things remaining constant. Our revenue capacity, I put it between 450 million to 480 million, a little bit under 500 million. So obviously, when you see a budget over 500 million, then you must understand that out of that difference is coming from external sources, through loans, grants, or something else. So that is why recently, with the intervention of IMF and other institutions, this government is trying to keep what we call a realistic budget on paper. Again, I say on paper because there are other factors that we would discuss going forward that will impact that very thing that is on paper. Okay, so because there are factors that cause budget shortfall, there are factors that cause budget deficit. All right, whether it's economic, whether it's fiscal indiscipline, whether it's criminality, which is my core area, and things like that. But when it goes to the and there's politics too, politics of the presidency, politics of the But when it goes to the legislature, then it becomes political. Now, interest, it happens all over the world, even in advanced country. When you go to the parliament or the legislature or whatever you call it in the United States, here the Congress, there's give and take. There's quid pro quo. Yeah. You scratch my back, I scratch your back.
Yeah.
So if you take development to my state, I will support your budget initiative. Mm-hmm. If you do this, okay, we'll do that. Now, it happens all over the place, but in Liberia, it happens too. But oftentimes we've seen that when a budget gets to the legislature, then it becomes like they have some budget hearing, but then it becomes like, okay, legislature is always finding money. I don't know sometimes where they find these monies from. When Ministry of Finance did not find that money. Mm-hmm. And then sometimes they kind of squeeze the president too that, hey, and a lot of times in Liberia, when we come from the budget process, when the Ministry of Finance, by the time it comes out of the legislature, then it's like 100 million. The budget is jumped. The budget is jumped by about 100 million. 100 million. Okay, so sometimes it moves from 500 million to 600 million. Sometimes it's a combination of selfish interest and things like that. Not the positive interest of taking things to my district to build, to give me more district development funds. But sometimes it's about our allowances and our salaries and our benefits that takes the budget up.
Thank you. Again, folks in cyberspace, you are watching Focus on Liberia. We are sitting down with Mr. Alex Coffey. Then we are discussing the topic, understanding the national budget of Liberia. Mr. Coffey, I know you started with that, so let's go into it. Let's look at some of the factors responsible for budget shortfall, budget deficit, and all those things. You were talking earlier that sometimes the executive prepares the budget, sends it to the to the legislature. The legislature, having their own political interest, promises they made maybe during campaign and say, no, we got to ask some money because I want this from my district, thereby ballooning the budget up to maybe $100 million. That's particular case, will you say that it might be a factor for a budget shortfall? Because now you increase the budget, the revenue envelope by 100 million, but the projection from the expert from Ministry of Finance or the executive are telling you we can only raise 500 million, but the executive said you have to find it somewhere. So besides that, what are other factors that can contribute to the budget shortfall?
Okay, so again, let me just repeat that budget deficit is where your actual revenue now becomes lower than your actual expenses. That creates a deficit. Now, budget shortfall is where you project to collect certain amount of revenue, and in actual fact, you did not collect that amount of revenue. So, for example, if they through the budget preparation process, if you give some wrong assumptions, through political overzealousness, the president wants this to be done, and we have to meet we got to meet the president halfway, or just if you don't apply some financial rules or fiscal measures properly, if you don't manage contingency, for example. I remember in 2009, there was a clear situation where sometimes some of the revenue that are coming in from these concessions, the royalty revenue and those things that are coming in, sometimes they are contingent on some things happening. And if you put those revenue inside, and those things, that's why it's safe to be prudent to put it in contingency, because something got to happen. But if you put that thing in real revenue and the projection revenue, and that condition did not happen, that you get the royalty, or you see certain factors surrounding the situation that, especially in 2009, when there was this whole financial meltdown, when you see these factors that surround that situation, it's not all gloomy, it's not correct. It can be a miscalculation. And once there's a miscalculation, you're obviously not going to collect that revenue. So once you don't collect that revenue, your actual revenue falls, is what we call budget shortfall. So certain assumptions can also, have a problem that leads us to not collecting the revenue we say we're going to collect, right? Now, if we go the political side of things, if we go to the legislature, and legislature say they found this money, and they squeeze the executive, and the executive add that money in there. In real life, you're not going to collect that money. So in that situation, you can create both a shortfall situation and a deficit situation. Because say you say you're going to collect that money, and the legislature the legislature budget office or wherever program that money to be expended. So the Ministry of Finance, for example, sent 480 million revenue collection and an expenditure of 480 million. And we come back and the legislature find 100 million, and the budget now go to 580 million. Right? The revenue side obviously going to jump to 580 million. Then they're going to program that. We will work with the Ministry of Finance to program the 100 million to expend it on paper projection. So they project that they're going to spend that money. Now you get there, you really not going to collect that money. So shortfall happened at the same time, but Liberia is such a country, and most like most other countries, Terraware or whatever country, poor countries, the priorities are many. All right, the priorities are many. So obviously, you're going to spend. You always even our individual self. They need to spend more money than what we have the ability to collect is high. So obviously, in those situations, you create both a deficit and a shortfall situation, because your projected revenue are going to fall short on collection, and your expenditures are going to be high, and you're still going to be more than that revenue, because you're still going to spend money on certain basic things. Except where you get to the recast stage and you do a recast and you tune down things. That's the only way. But other than that, at that stage, so politics play a role too. So some of the factors, listing some of the factors for budget deficit and or budget shortfall. Political, that's at the legislative stage. But on the executive side, the president is a political person. Elections coming, for example. So if the president goes to visit a constituency or some county or somewhere, and there's a need to do certain things that will impact the election or something, there's a possibility that, hey, Minister of Finance, can you make this money available? But Chief, it's not in the budget, my friend. Go find the money. Go and find that money and build that bridge. Because in 2 years there will be elections. All right? And they go and find that money. They're creating they're spending more money, they're creating a deficit situation. That one is deficit because your expenditure is going to be higher than the revenue. So, of course, some other examples could be the president wants to silence some people. some political, other political people, like the opposition, or even the press, and want to silence the press and spend this money and that money here and that money here, those things add up. So the politics of the day can create a budget, a deficit situation. Now, we look at also economics. Okay, which is our biggest thing, the economics of the day. So in the past, we understand that, okay, for example, these things we always hear that Ome was here and Ome was bringing in millions of dollars pumping millions of dollars into the economy. Right. So obviously, Ome has now left. So that money that Ome was pumping into the economy, the allowances that were coming, they were buying stuff, stores were making money, and they were paying more taxes to the government. They were creating foreign exchange too, so exchange rate factors, certain things were being controlled because there was these funds that were coming in to back to back our exchange rate situation there. And then also they were renting a lot of buildings. So rental revenue was coming. So once Ome left, that money ain't coming again. All right. Of course, we knew that Ome was going to leave. Did we prepare for the departure of Ome? Probably yes, probably not. But then also, our productive capacity, our country is such that we are more vested into the extractive industry, the iron ore, the rubber,
Those are very, very true. I mean, before we get there, I want to ask you a question along that line. What's our history of budget shortfall? Because we're talking about the budget and shortfall. You're kind of getting into that space, right? What's been our history with that throughout our times in Liberia?
Well, I wouldn't go back to the history of Totmon and Tolbert because I was young.
I don't mean that way, but I'm just saying in general, what's been our, when we're looking at the budget shortfall and so forth, and where we kind of prevent it or maneuver it and so forth. What's been our, within our...
At least over the past few years, or if you look at historically over the past few years, maybe the last 12 plus 2 years and counting now, we've had those situations for different reasons. Like some of the reasons that we talked about. Government had tried to maintain some stability in terms of budget shortfall, budget deficit situation. But like 2009, we had a situation with budget shortfall. That was because there were certain assumptions that were made that we fell short on. We continued that, but then years subsequent to that, 2011, 2012, there was budget shortfall situation because we just aren't, because the financial meltdown had happened. Our productive capacities at that time now was solely based on the extractive industry, the prices of these commodities, which we don't have control over. That was after the financial meltdown from 2009, 2010, 2012, going before Ebola hit, when we were trying to recover, then Ebola hit. But so the productive capacity is limited. So the prices of iron ore on the world market went down. The prices of rubber went down. And we could not, as a country, we can diversify in terms of, for example, can we now develop a vibrant tourism sector? Can we develop a non-traditional export situation? I was in Ghana. I worked on that whole non-traditional export landscape, right? Consulting projects that work on that project.
Alex, we agree. I mean, you're getting into maybe your part 2 now, where we want to invite you back to talk about the other stuff now. But now you just... Now we want you to lay that foundation, let the concrete, let the cement dry, correct, so you can build up. So come back to this budget thing, you talked about this thing called recast. And I guess you mentioned that, we're trying to get a better understanding. So it goes from the legislature to the president, or the president goes back, and then they got to. Does that mean that they are automatically authorizing the Ministry of Finance to go and borrow money when they say go find the money, or you know?
No, from my experience, when the legislative budget office, maybe sometimes the Ministry of Finance process didn't see certain things, or the legislative budget officers see something, and they deal with, because they are lawmakers, so they deal with laws,
Yes.
and they know they've passed this law. For example, it could be possible that, oh, we didn't factor in the road development fund, the money that's coming from the petroleum products as a part of the road development fund, for example. And the Minister of Finance did not consider that in the budget, and the legislative budget office finds that money is coming in, because they passed the law. But it's sometimes in real fact there's still a fight, even though you pass the law. The legislature passed the law. Somebody sponsored the bill, and the law was passed. So in their mind, the law is passed. So the money should come up. But realistically, the Minister of Finance did not see the reason to put that in the budget, because there's still a fight that's going on, and it's not going to be realized, even though the law was passed. But in the face of the legislature, once we pass the law, the road fund, the fund will be collected, for example. And so they add money based on that.
Wow, this
and in reality, if that money is not collected, then you have a deficit situation.
I mean, this is the dealing with, it's like you said, when you're home, right? When you go to your wife and say, yeah, the budget is this. But sometimes, and the woman saying, honey, I think that fufu and soup you like every Saturday, I think it will not be happening if I don't get this money to fix that roof. So I guess that's the same type of pressure that we see in between the legislature, the president, and the and so forth, right? Because they got to jockey. I mean, and it's the political pressure. You got to find that happy space.
Yeah, that's why, from my experience, that's a good point. From my experience, the years that I stayed into working with the government, I see that in the previous government, I see that if you see the budget delaying like that, then the president and the legislature going back and forth. And you remember one time, President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf did not sign the budget for a little bit, because at that point she was not pleased with they believe that the Minister of Finance had come up with cover all the bases, and the legislature was demanding certain things, and the president said, I'm not signing it. We will not go there, right? We're not going there. So it took some time. So sometimes you see the budget, even though the ministry sometimes they submit that thing late, but once it gets to the legislature, within a period of maximum 1 month, which the budget should be what do you call it? It should be passed, right? But then when you see the back and forth now, then there's something in the soup that the legislator too trying to bargain. They're trying to use that bargaining chip, that passing that signature power, that power to pass the budget to get something. And most of the time, like I've understood, the one they are letting them to be increased.
I know. So, thank you.
And that is when the trouble starts. Hey, gentlemen, why don't we do this?
Comments, Anthony, some comments too. Whenever you're ready.
Yes, I will let you know. And then, folks in cyberspace, you can get your phone calls coming in. The phone line is right there on the screen, 605-313-6004. Don't forget to enter the code 791403, and then you will have the opportunity to make a comment or ask Mr. Coffee a question. Hey, Alex, now what we do this, your professional expertise is also into financial security. That is my language I'm using. I'm not a financial guy. I know that your line of work, you have expertise in illegal tracking or investigating illegal financial transaction, money laundering, and other illicit financial flow, right? So let me come to that. We read an article that quoted you when it came to this subject of lack of transparency and accountability for short corruption. And the article, let me put on the screen so our viewer here can see it also. They quoted you and you define corruption. That was in 2010, Alice. Alice Cafe 2010 defines corruption more broadly by identifying two nuances or senses regarding the first. He states that corruption is the act of impairing integrity, virtue, and moral principle. He further observes that in Liberia, corruption appears to have permeated every fabric of the society to the extent that our mind's attitude and the way we do things appear entangled in corruption. There is corruption in the homes, community, churches, schools, and you went on and on and on. That scared me. So you are the guy tracking the big money, how it going here and there, but you more like my understanding as you say, look, why is true this bigger on a larger scale, but it starts from our homes, from our churches. What's the point you're trying to make here?
So, to answer your question directly, the point I was trying to make, based on the understanding of our society dynamics in Liberia, corruption has permeated our society to the extent that it's all over the place. It's not only in government; it's in the household, it's in the churches, it's in the street. It starts from there. But there's something I believe in. Okay. I believe in what you call top-down vision, bottom-up management. Okay. It's the vision that you send down. The rain comes falling down. The heat will go up, right? Right. So it has to do with in your house. If you come home as a parent, if you come home as a father, the head of the home, if you come home drunk every day, what do you expect the children to follow? If you don't lead by example, if you don't set example, what do you expect the kids to follow? So there is a top-down vision. What do we rain down? How we looked at when I teach auditing all the times, the component of auditing they call one the environment. So it looks at it includes the quality of leadership. Right? It's the quality. Do you have acute people who are accomplished? Were they not just appointed because they were in the party and they were who, they were what, they were cronies, they were whatever, but do they have a track record? They may not have all the degrees to manage that place. Yeah, of course, you don't need it to be an engineer to manage public works, but once a good administrator, you know how to set your goals, you know how to do your strategic plan, you know how to do all these things, you know how to lead by example, you can get the job done. So if you don't have good leadership to rain down a vision, and if you have a leadership that lack integrity, that encourage corruption, of course, what are the rest of the kids, the employees going to do? Oh, they're doing their own, so we'll do our own too. So over the years, because we've not been aggressive in our enforcement or in our process to weed out corruption or to minimize corruption, because it may not be eradicated, but it can be. So you see everybody else doing that. So everybody thinks it's okay. When I grew up as a kid in the 80s, when President Doe the late President Doe was in office, peace be to his ashes, we idolized some people. But as a kid who was brought out by my father to understand that you don't take what doesn't belong to you. My late father, peace be to his ashes, George Coffey. But we saw some of these people. I don't want to call names here, but we saw some of these people. We look at them, but I asked myself, but these guys, I was a kid, but I see that these guys it becomes normal because these guys were taking government money and they were building houses, they were riding fabulous cars, they were dressing well, and we mentioned this person. I remember those days. peace be to the ashes, my friend Afri Walker, who died recently. We used to have this conversation that, but this guy, they're doing good, or they're doing this in the social fabric of the society. But we need to realize that they were double dipping on government money, right? So you begin to understand that it's okay to do that. So as a kid growing up, if you don't have strong parental guidance, or you don't have strong peer situation, or you don't have your own self-motivation, then it becomes okay to do that. So what is happening to our country, and what I was saying in that article, in fact, that I wrote an article, that's where that was lifted. Mm-hmm. I wrote an article in 2010, that was where that was lifted. Right. And the situation in our country now has come to a point now. Corruption now has become not epidemic, but epidemic. It has permeated our society that even the Zogo as we call them, quote unquote, mm-hmm. they feel it's okay.
And Alex, I don't want to put you more because you feel strong about this. And so in 2018, February the 27th to be exact, there's another article we ran into during our research, and you are quoted in this article saying, there must be strong leadership. Everything starts with the head, and the head of the country is the president. And also the head of most institutions are the officials. It starts with them. If they don't engender proper leadership, we are going nowhere. If they do not have good leadership qualities and make sure their leadership quality go throughout the organization and throughout the country, we will have a problem. If we have a leadership that throughout the day, what we do is bad things, everything on you want to do are bad things, then we are doomed. You were sounding very strong there. So are you saying that the solution to all the problems will start with leadership from whoever may be the head of an institution, not only the president, every institution in our government? Is that what you're saying?
So I didn't expect you to take me to that corner, but now that you put me, but those are my writings. So yeah, so yes, I would say that, and probably I was prepared to receive a question that says, at the end of your program, I said, what is your parting comment? And this is how I'm going to answer your question. Mm-hmm. And now that you've brought me to this opportunity to answer that question, yes, I always say that. The problem that we have in most of our institutions, and in fact, our country as a whole, Liberia has, over the years, a problem with leadership. Once we have good leadership, unselfish leadership with integrity in that country, everything else will fall in let me not say everything. Most things will fall in place. Like we talk about the top-down vision, bottom-up management. The message that you send down, that's what the people will follow. And I will praise Liberians. I put my neck on the line for Liberians. Liberians are law-abiding and they are good people because I have that experience. When you lead people properly and you give them what it takes, even if you don't have it. For example, when we were doing the investigation, those boys were in the room. We didn't have money. We had not received money, but those boys would take money from our pocket and provide water. They will manage it. Once you provide leadership, people will work. And those boys did their report. They wrote their report. They sat in that room. Nothing got out. Very confidential. Those boys remain because we provided them with leadership. Even the organization that I headed in Liberia, I remember I was talking to somebody, who was my former staff before, and they said, "You ain't like working. You set example, by way of leadership." I also go back to Ghana where I've stayed and worked for 9.5 years. That's why I idolize Rollins. Ghana had its own issues. Over the years. Ghana people are going to Liberia buying rice, buying Gary from Liberia. But when Jerry Rollins came to power, you like him or he may have done some things, because of the order of the day when he started. But over time, the things that are happening to Ghana today, they may not be order perfect. The economy may not be order perfect. But the good things that are happening to Ghana today, the stage was set by one person. And that person is called John Jerry Rawlings or Jerry John Rawlings. Somebody say one of my pictures, I look like John Rawlings. I say, yeah, I appreciate that if I look like him. Because I idolize him. I was there. Look at Rwanda. You like him or not, he's still in office or whatever the politics are. But we had the same situation with war. They had genocide. They killed a lot of people. We too had our own situation. But look at Rwanda today. I haven't gone to Rwanda, but what I hear and what I've read and what I read, it shows that Rwanda is on this trajectory. Okay? That is one person who decided unselfishly, I'm going to move my country forward. In my estimation, unfortunately, Liberia has been lacking that from Charlie Kington. I don't mean literally Charlie King as a president, but from long time.
All right. Well said. Well said. Williams, please read.
And I would like to give you one more example.
Okay.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
Liberians can follow rules. Look, when we had a traffic situation, A.B. Kroma, as a deputy police director, he mounted his men to make sure that the traffic was respected. I am a law-abiding person. I used to wake up 7 o'clock, for example, but I started waking up 6 o'clock. Because if I get on that road, when A.B. Kroma on that road, the traffic will be black. So I kind of go, people were going to work. When Justice Ellis said, okay, let's buy Liberian products. Let everybody wear African. The next day you see everybody, the African wearing today, it started from that statement. That's how law-abiding Liberians can be.
My favorite example is the purple suit.
The purple suit today. President Joshua wears the purple suit. Everybody wears the purple suit. Because we follow our leader. We follow the example. Vision comes down, management goes up. So if you make it negative, it will be negative. And Liberia will have a leadership gap, and then that leads to what? Impunity, failure to enforce. And then because if you have an acute leader who is selfish, he will make sure that, look at an example, you will make sure that every organization has an active person who can lead that organization, and it will all add up. And once it start adding up, everybody will start getting afraid. You go to Ghana and say, hey, me, I don't do that. Oh. Hey, we don't do that here. Oh. Are they corrupt sometimes? Yeah, they can be corrupt. But on the surface, you don't do that. You get in a taxi, for example, taxi. Oh, Charlie, move, go. Hey, you want the police to arrest me? I'm not going, I will be in the traffic. That is where it began. It starts. When Liberia, we'll get out, man. Don't make me get passionate here.
All right. Let me fit that. William, please read some comments from our guests following us on Facebook here, please.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for those who have been commenting. We have Arlington Cookie saying, following you attentively, Honorable Coffee, and admire how you dissecting the issue being presented to the public. Musu Wangolo Stewart says, you are so right. Qualification is critical. Musu also says, but integrity first, because qualified people can sometimes be very corrupt. Odeshas Faya Fatoma says, please adjust so we can see his face. Okay. Arlington Cookie says, yes, we must be examples of the life we live. Accountability and transparency should therefore be the fulcrum and guide to taking on leadership. And also further on, someone says, how about you stop adding people and unnecessary things and to do some consolidation and streamlining? That is regarding the budget. He also, Telco says, rob Peter to pay Paul mentality and approach. And someone also says that your roof is leaking, but you're going to buy an expensive car. And someone else says you hit the nail on the head. Miscalculation. We seem to be good at that. And someone also said, Telco says it's just some poor excuses regarding the budget. And Musu also says, I think the estimates are way off due to personal interest, which I think you've covered. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are here with Alex Coffey discussing budget fundamentals, how our budget is impacted by policies, by political and different things and so forth, and also getting a lesson about integrity and leadership, how critical it is to Mama Liberia. We have our phone line. It is on. Please call in 605-313-6004. The code is 791403. It is on our screen. We do send a gentle reminder that if you will be calling in using your phone or another device, make sure you mute the one that you're not going to be talking on so that there isn't an echo. Once again, focus on Liberia. Back to you, Anthony.
Thank you, William. And Mr. Coffey, we are about to hit our 1 hour 30 minutes mark. And so I know you started talking about something, but I want for us to touch that as our final segment. That is, how do we increase our revenue so that we don't have to have these too many budget shortfall and budget deficit, because it impact your brothers and sisters in Equitown because the government is not generating more money. How do we increase the revenue envelope so we don't have this shortfall?
Yeah, our homes are growing. Equitown is growing. Yeah. From the sea. We're not able to complete the project. It's the same money business. So, so let me to talk about how do we increase our revenue. Let me take you back a little bit, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. So we were talking about some of the factors that cause budget deficit and or budget shortfall. Right. So we touched on the political things. We touched a little bit on the economy, which is a normal thing. But also there's the issue of fiscal indiscipline. Great subject. You know, the issue of spending is like you as a person, if you're spending more than you can earn, mm-hmm. The pressure from politics or from different people, political people or whatever, and then fiscal discipline. You know, this project is not in a budget, but you want it to be done mm-hmm. because you want to satisfy certain things. It's tough. And then there's an issue of which is which I've written on, the issue of criminality. Criminality, yeah. Yes. July 13, 2018, I wrote an article on that, which was like a precursor to the whole map up process and others. Yes. Okay. So and then I also recently in June this year, I wrote another article talking about as an offshoot of the $8 million that was the $8 million that was in question regarding the shell company situation. Right. So there is also these criminal elements that also are undermining our budget situation and therefore our economy. Mm-hmm. Corruption is one of the criminal elements. The issue of corruption. But before I go there too, also one of the things that are causing this attention to our revenue side, the budget deficit and all that stuff, our accounting infrastructure, our ability to properly account for our revenue, that architecture is lacking. So that's why in Liberia we may not be able to do what we call value-added tax collection in anytime soon. But in other countries that I know, for example, Ghana started value-added tax. That whole structure is the accounting for your revenue. How do you go to shop and collect a receipt and demand a receipt? And how is the system connected to the Ministry of Finance database, blah, 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 to know, or to the LRA database to know that, yes, these are the revenue, these are the taxes that are being collected up front. Mm-hmm. And, so accounting for our money, the infrastructure, all that stuff is one of the problems. But the corruption is also sometimes we have something in corporate where we say management fraud. If management cook the books, that's why you have today. You don't have Enron in business. You don't have Arthur Anderson in business as an auditing firm. Right. If management cook the books, that's management fraud. For example, you cook the books in a way that for your company to look good on the stock market for people to invest, and then when people invest, when they lost their money, it's a problem. There are laws against that. So you don't cook the budget just for the budget to look good, and you know that you're going to have a shortfall.
Right.
That can be criminal. Then sometimes too, corruption is written by USAID and other institutions. There's a tendency for government to direct funds to development projects because they have kickbacks
or interest.
They have shares of monetary interest in that. Other those projects are given to the companies where they have what we call beneficiary ownership interest in, and all that stuff. And then eventually some of the money is going to come to them. Right. So leaders have a way of directing. Development project is good. But when development project is based on selfish reason, because we know that if we construct this road somewhere, or we construct this factory somewhere, or we construct this bridge somewhere, we know we'll get money from inside. It's not planned out properly, but because it's based on corruption and I will get kickback, it affects the budget as well. Sometimes there's a tendency for you to pay up 50% up front. Mm-hmm. And we've seen situations in the past where we see the yellow machine there on the road getting rotten because the men they're not share the money. The first tranche of the money not share it. Now they got to go look for new money. So some of the things that impact some of those corruption impact our situation. We have a situation where people are transferring money left and right from our country without us looking at it. People purporting to be doing business in our country. People register like the shell company thing we're talking about. Right. People register company in the company. Even in government structure, mm-hmm. People register companies. We call it. I hate to use the word fake company because legally it's the word shell company. They just use the shell company. It's possible. Shell company can be used for good reason and it can be used for criminal reason. So that it's a pass through. It becomes a pass through. Where are we going to? We identify. We say we're going to do this project, or we're going to buy a set of computers, or we're going to do this, we're going to do that, or this thing costs $500,000, or this thing costs $200,000. Only to realize we pass it to a company where no work will be done. That money will just change hands. But then we realize that we actually need those computers. We already need 100 computers, but we just spend $100,000. Then we go back into the budget. We look for new money to buy that thing what we're supposed to buy in the first place. So that causes a problem. Now people are using over the years, like that was reported by the NCA, over the years on that $80 million thing, that $8 million situation. This thing's been happening in our country for years. People have been using shell companies to transfer money. Wow. Businesses in Liberia, one of the things that when I was in Liberia, I would give that, in my work, I hate to mention specific cases because of the work that I do, but there's a specific example that when I was back in Liberia and we worked with Thomas Doe now, very bright guy, very good guy, one of the astute guys in this government. We work with him and we identify some areas where business people are denying the government over the years of revenue through these shell companies, through and moving monies here and there. We open a corridor, and one of the instances we were able to save government $2 million. That's one instance. And the Liberian Revenue Authority, we pointed them to the direction where they were even to address some people, and there's some cases are now in court. Now, the revenue of Liberia is being suppressed by these criminal activities. Other corrupt officials conniving with business people to transfer monies in out of the country. Right now, they're transferring money to nearby African countries through those corruption channels, through other businesses. And that is undermining our revenue performance, that is undermining our budgets, and is undermining our economy and the kind of development that we give to places like Nikutan to block that road to block that sea from taking Nikutan away, the place that I come from and I cherish.
And Mr. Coffee, why you saying this is in line with it? The issue of subsidy from your line of work, you don't have to call any specific company or individual. Is that something that you have come across where subsidy that government gave to institution, has been another area people carry on the criminality and just take the money for themselves?
But on the flip side too, when you talk about subsidy, that undermines us too. All these different, I'm sure they've worked on it now, but it's a problem when you give all these duty frees to all these different officials. That undermines revenue collections. All right. But meanwhile, you projected for those revenue. You see the shortfall you see shortfall is coming.
Right.
Because if you project that you're going to collect all these things from customs, from excise, from the free port, from all that stuff, the LRA is going to collect all the money. We need to realize you got 100 people getting duty free that they're not entitled to. They're getting all these different subsidies that they're not entitled to. Of course, you're going to leave revenue on the table, but that revenue was already captured in the budget, and obviously you're going to have a shortfall. Because 50 million or 100 million or 150 million was not collected as a result of giving, for lack of a better word, giving bogus subsidy or duty free
to individuals.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
I know. I mean, I know. I trust some of those now. I respect him a lot. He stands by his stuff now. But these things happen. And it undermines our budget performance. Now, we know we have COVID going on, and it affects everybody, even in the United States of America, it affects everybody. But I'm talking about, the all things remaining constant situation. No disaster, no unforeseen circumstances, all things remaining constant. There are a lot of criminalities that are going on in Liberia. I can't point to specific cases because of my work with the FIU and now I'm staying in the same line of work. I can't point, but generally, if in my writing, my two recent articles, the one I published just in June and the one I published in 2018 July, this thing is all there. I made sure I didn't include any things that will speak to specific cases that will breach my confidentiality level, but these are problems that we have in our country. And again, it goes to leadership. Once you have unselfish leadership who expect for all the heads of institution to have a contract, and it may not be written. But you know what? If you are head of an institution who is responsible for traffic control, it starts as basic as traffic control, where the taxi driver can just park in a junction where other cars are coming and he will pour a passenger inside the car before he moves from that junction. And police is standing next to the place there. He's not talking.
Or when he goes there, it's about his pocket.
And if I was your boss, I ain't dealing with the police guy. The police director will be fired. If I have that report several times, and if you're fired and the next police guy comes, the police director comes, and I tell you, this is your contract, you got to make sure XYZ happens or XY doesn't happen, of course you're going to ship up. And when you start shipping up, your deputies will start shipping up, your assistants will start shipping up. Everybody, I'm just giving the police as an example. I'm not picking on Patrick or whoever. Don't get me wrong, but I'm just speaking on the general situation of our society. What are we being? This is something that's been happening for years, not just now. This is something that's been happening for years, and it points to the leadership, the lack of unselfish and leadership full of integrity and everything that we've been lacking in our country for years. Okay, right. So if you don't do your work, my friend, we have plenty of Liberians that qualify back.
We'll bring the next person. We have Alex looking like from the way you are speaking, it looks and feels as if there's some presidential thing in your blood looking to make Liberia move forward. That's just
I've been writing and speaking like this for a while, man.
I don't think.
I got a lot of articles out there.
Yeah, I don't think Alex is thinking about that.
I'm just kidding.
But Willen, we have to wrap this up. Alex has given a lot. William, anything you want to say?
Well, Alex, I think you've set the groundwork. You've laid the good foundation. The concrete is set. As Anthony and I said, and many folks, you have a lot that we want to dissect and go into a little bit more. So we would love to have you come back very soon to speak more about some of the reporting. And thanks for also clarifying. And by the way, what I want to say is that the idea about where we got the thing about the author from. So we research and look through documents and different things like that. And on there, maybe it was just faulty reporting or reporting not being conscious that this was a committee. But it mentioned in the headline that you were the author of the PIT report. So thanks for clarifying that. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, Alex Coffey was not the author of the PIT report. He was part of the committee, and in his role and capacity as secretary, he was the one responsible to stand up on the podium and read about the findings. But there were many individuals involved on the committee for the PIT report. Thank you.
All right.
You're welcome.
Mr. Coffey, we will not get your parting words so we can wrap this thing down.
On the budget.
Well, I appreciate the invitation, first of all, and I want to say thank you. And then I also appreciate people in the internet world who have tuned in and those who listen to it subsequently. Liberia is a country that we hold dearly to our hearts, and we are passionate about. And like like Dallas Dillon said, and I quote, Liberia is not a country that is the only country that we cannot be deported from. We hope we're praying for a better Liberia, that an enabling environment will be created for all of us to thrive. For the old lady that's selling her cane juice to sell her cane juice to sell her children to school. The enabling environment that will bring in, that will diversify our revenue generating capacity. The environment that we right now we have peace. The guns have silence, but we're still struggling. So that environment that will avail fear from in us for us to, achieve our potential. Liberia started on that trajectory from 2006, and it was going up. Between 2006, 2008, 2009, it was going up. And all of a sudden, it's just starts sailing down, and it continues to sail down. But we pray that Liberia, some way, there will be a turning point, and Liberia will get on a trajectory of upward movement like other countries around us, and that will create that environment for all of us to thrive. There are so many people that are in different countries who are 70 years old, 75 years old, 60 years old, that just want to go back home to retire, to stay home, get their little social security money or wherever they're getting a little, and what you call it, their cold water money from, to stay home. You think I want to retire here? I want to retire in the USA? No. So there are so many of us, the children, my daughters. Yesterday I was speaking to my oldest daughter. She wants to go home. As young as she is, she's thinking about going back to Africa. And she told me that if Liberia not ready, I'm going back to Ghana because I was born in Ghana. Thank you.
Mr. Ellis Coffey, folks in cyberspace, we want to say thank you for following our FOL Marketplace, which is a business and economic forum here. I focus on Liberia. Today, I hosted with my partner, William Bernard King, and our guest has been Mr. Ellis Coffey. But he says something that I capture. He said he's praying for Liberia to get on that path. I'm sure he's talking about prosperity economically in any kind of way. He wants his Liberia to progress. He said he's praying. For me, I am not praying. You want to know what I'm doing? I am dreaming. I'm dreaming for that beautiful country that I can be proud of. I want to be able to go to Nikruta and walk on the beach and not smell anything. I am dreaming for that Liberia. While Alex is praying, I am dreaming. Will his prayer get us there? With my dreaming get us there? Will William Hope get us there? Well, maybe we should turn all that to work. He said he wants to retire in Liberia. And to you, our leaders, my prayer, Alex's prayer, my dream, William's hope will not materialize until you provide us that leadership. And Alex couldn't say it better. Leadership, leadership, selfless, with integrity. And that's how we get this ball rolling. That's how we get this ship called Liberia moving. I want to see us moving so that I can get to Grand Crew and eat my lead palm butter. I don't know where you're from. Maybe you're from Bomb County. You know your favorite soup, so you can eat it too. Thank you, folks. But we have a song here for you called We Are All Liberians, and Liberia is our home. That song is from my borough of Nikrutown from a group called Sumontan International. Oh, Alex loved this song so much. Alex, bye-bye, my brother.
Bye.
Thank you, Alex. Very much.